righty, we're going to go ahead and get started. You guys know how I like to start on time. If people come in late, that's on them, but they won't say that Michelle didn't start on time, right? So, right. Welcome to the remix. So if you were here last time, yeah, my internet went out. It was just terrible on my end. However, my fellow stage presenters here, Shaniqua and LJ, they took over, and so it went well. But we wanted to have a complete recording and, just really put this Wine and Wills together and put it out there, because honestly, this is like, it's well-needed information. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get this started. All right. If you guys can mute yourself so I don't have the feedback, that'd be great. So welcome everybody to the Wine, Wills, and W-2s. Like, that was a joke, but it came up, like, we end up liking the title, so it works. So what parents should know regarding recent graduates. All right. So, of course, if you've been to my Wine and Wills before, you know I have my disclaimer. I mean, I just wouldn't be an attorney, a legitimate one, if I didn't, right? So you can read it along with me. I am an attorney licensed in Maryland and the District of Columbia. However, I am not your attorney unless my firm has an engagement letter signed by you or your agent and myself. So this webinar is for informational purposes only and does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. So if you see me looking off, I have two screens. So because of last time, I usually do this in like the living room, kitchen setting. Like our kitchen is our family hub. This time I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit right next to the router. So that's where I am. I have my two screens up. So if you see me looking off, that's what it is. All right. So who are your speakers? You have me, Michelle Bell. I am an estate planning attorney. I help you keep your family out of court and conflict. You have Miss Shaniqua Covert. She's your CPA. She helps protect you from IRS, amongst other things, right? But those dreaded three letters. And then we have my wine guy, LJ Shefford. I can't do this without him. So he helps your taste buds explore new flavors, mainly me. So I'm the one on this learning wine journey while we do this. So while you're learning estate planning and what's great, I'm learning, wine. I'm more of a dark rum girl myself, All right. So, I like to start off with myth versus facts. So let's get ready. Let's see how much you know. We're going to go ahead and you're going to put the information in the chat. That works. So first thing, estate planning myth versus fact. So I need to plan a reading of my will. You see on TV, everybody gathers in front of the attorney and he's at this big oak desk and everybody's like, ooh, what did Uncle Fester leave me? You see that on TV. So do you think that is a myth or a fact that you actually need to plan a reading of your will? Go ahead and hit me up in the chat. I love participation. What you think? Okay, I see it's good for TV, but a myth. I see you, Don. You put yes. Is it yes as in myth or yes as in fact? Which one, Don? LJ, I see you with fact. Don, fact. Okay. So let's see if you're right. No, you're not. It's a myth. So it's made for TV, very dramatic, entertaining. It has nothing to do with the law, right? So once a person dies, their will is filed with the court. The will becomes part of a probate case and subject to the courts and the public scrutiny. So the will is now part of the public record, and anyone can view the will as part of the court's record. So it is a myth. All right, next. This is a myth versus facts for tax. So you can claim pets as dependents since you provide more than half your financial support as their owner. What do you think? Myth or fact? Okay, I see some myths coming in. All right, I see some myths. I see some myths. Okay. All right, Shaniqua, you can unmute yourself.
All right. So it looks like most people got that one correct. So pets are not humans. Falsely claiming a dependent is considered fraud, no matter if they're a pet or a human. And you should not do that. So absolutely correct. It's a myth.
All right, and that's in all exclamation points. You should not do that. Let's not commit fraud. Okay. All right. So one more for estate planning: myth versus fact. So my kids can challenge my will if I don't leave them an inheritance. So what do you think? It's a little bit harder. Is that a myth or a fact? Let's go. Let's go. Let's blow up the chat. All right. So I see fact. What else? What else? I see fact. I see a myth. Okay. Can anyone challenge the will? See, you're supposed to put myth or fact, But so technically, anyone can challenge the will. Will they be successful is the question. But anyone can start a lawsuit, unfortunately. However, you really should have standing, meaning you are an interested party if you're going to challenge a will. Myth and fact, no, you can't have both. So here we have, it's a fact, but of course, as a lawyer, what does it mean, or what do I say? It depends. So requirements, again, standing, person who would inherit from the will or would have inherited if the will was not, legally valid, and you got to have a legal reason. So incapacity, that means you can't make decisions for yourself. You're not current. It's not a current version of the will, and the will did not meet legal requirements. These are the requirements if you're going to go ahead and challenge the will. So, I mean, Derek, you put myth and fact, so technically you're right, I guess. You cheated, but okay. All right. So you're right. You did put fact first, and then you changed your mind and put myth and fact. So here we go. Shaniqua, here's your myth versus fact for everyone. A student that is a dependent is not required to pay taxes. What do you guys think before she answers? What do we think? What do we think? Did we stump you a little bit? Myth. Derek, depends. I swear you cheat. Depends will always be like the right answer. What else? I see a myth in there. What else? Who else? What do you think? What do you think? Fact. Anybody else? Anybody else want to take a guess? Myth. All right. So.
All right. Well, I think Derek knows a little something.
Oh, wait. If they have income. Okay, Diamond.
If they have income. Okay, Diamond, that is absolutely almost correct. If the dependent student earns less than $12,950 during this past tax season, 2022, then they do not have to report their income because they're under the filing requirement of the threshold. And of course, with the IRS, everything is a depends, like Derek says, because this is income as it relates to a W-2 and not self-employment income. But we won't go down that rabbit hole. So as it stands, it is a myth. So dependents that earn income do have to file. It just depends on the amount.
All right. I saw you, Tara, with the fact. Good job. Good job. Okay. So I hope that was a great icebreaker for everyone. So what we're going to do is now we're going to have LJ come up, and he's going to talk about the first bottle of wine. So there's 3 bottles of wine this time. Yeah, it's gonna be a good night. Let's go, LJ.
It's a lot different because I have been drinking probably a half an hour before we even started. So I'm a little bit slower than normal, my reaction time. So you gotta forgive me, but thank you for allowing me to be a part of the Wine Wills and W-2s. I do like that name. You got to put that on a wine bottle on your custom labels. Just to, hint. But I'm LJ Shepard. I'm with the Boise Collection, and what we do, we have a collection of 35 wineries that we own, and 32 wineries that we own between France and California. We ship all the way from we ship all across the U.S. Some states we don't because it's not allowed. But for the most part, we can ship wine directly to you. And the first bottle of wine you that is there is the Chardonnay. It's from Buena Vista. It's 2019. You can move the slide over because I know I can't share.
1 second.
There we go. Perfect. So
what slide to stop at?
Yeah, that's you go one back. You go one back. Right, keep it on back because I think you were at the end. So what we're going to do right now, it's as you see, there's a couple of graphs. I always like to teach people the experience of drinking wine. I just don't want to give you wine and say, hey, here it is, taste it, what you taste. I like to give you an experience. So what you're looking at right now is 3 different bottles that's going to give you 3 different experiences. But first, you have to understand and learn about the 5 S's, because if you don't, your experience is going to be horrible and you're not going to get into the realm of wine drinking, because wine drinking, if you ever smoked a cigar, you know, there's an experience when you smoke a cigar. The same thing with, yes, I learned, you learned it. It's an experience. So if you drink wine, I want you to have an experience because I want you to buy more wine. Because when you think about it, a lot of black folks, we don't drink wine. And if we do, it's mostly on the sweet side. And why do we drink mostly the sweet side of wine? Because it's a mental thing that started when we was kids and was drinking those Kool-Aids and had those Kool-Aid packets. We pour a pound of sugar in there, stir it up, and you had your Kool-Aid. So as we got older, we realized we can't drink that much sugar. So somebody introduced us to a sweeter wine. That's why we're on the sweet wine. So what I'm trying to do is give you a different experience to expand your reach, not to go away from the sweet wine, but just to expand it a lot more to have that experience. And the best way to do that is to do the 5 S's. As you could see it. You see the glass, you swirl it, you sip it, you swirl it, you sniff it, you sip it, and then you savor it. And when you're savoring, you usually take notes from there to kind of write down because you want to know what you're actually smelling. Next slide. With these 3 wines, we're going to focus on the taste, the smell, and the touch. Next slide. And like I said, I'm from the Boisé collection, one of the most awarded family-owned and operated wine companies in the U.S., based in Burgundy and in Napa Valley in California. Next slide. We have, right there, it says 25, but we bought a few more, so we up to 32 right now of wineries that we own, and I'll make sure I put my website in the chat before we go. Next slide. These are some of the other things that we have for it as well. Jewelry, gifts, ideas that you need for your clients, custom labels for your clients. Next slide. So we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the first one when I told you what we're going to do, the one that's right in the middle. Next slide. So these are the 5 senses. You're going to taste like a pro tonight. See the wine. Pour your glass. You definitely want to pour your glass. And these are the things that you want to do. Even if you don't have my wines right now, make sure you got a glass of wine somewhere. And you just want to see it right now. You want to look at the wine color. You want to see if it's dark or if it's a dark white or if a light white wine. You want to look at all of that because what you're seeing right now is basically what type of how much alcohol content is in there. That's what you want to do. The next thing you want to do is swirl a glass. That's the reason for that. You want to release all the aromas because when you do the next thing, when you sniff it, you can smell the aromas. You can smell the fruit. You can smell the oak. You can smell all of that the minute you start releasing it. You got to think about a bottle of wine has been corked. So all you want to do when you uncork it, it's basically waking up. So what do you do when you first wake up in the morning? You start yawning. That's the same thing the wine is doing. The wine is starting to yawn. It's like, oh, I'm up. Now I want to release the aroma. So every time you swirl it, that's what's happening. You want to sniff it. You want to see what you're tasting, and then you want to take a sip of it. Next slide.
LJ, does it matter the type of glass that it's in, stemless or otherwise?
No, because I got a stemless right here myself.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. It all works the same thing. Now, with the stemless, you got to understand when you're holding it, it does change because the heat from your hands will change I can't think of the name. It will change the temperature because your temperature is a little bit hot. So if you got a cold glass, like your white wine should be cold. I mean, it should be cold, but if you're holding it, it might change it a little bit. But so you still want to do the same thing, but it still doesn't matter. Whatever glass you have, you still do that. Next slide, though. Next one, because I want to get into the wine. What you're gonna smell? Your nose smells 10,000 different scents out there. Too many. But right now, we're just gonna try to concentrate on the fruit and the oak. That's all we're gonna do. Next slide. So this is a Burgundy. This is a Buena Vista. This is from Buena Vista. It's a Chardonnay that you're drinking if you have it. It's a Chardonnay that you're drinking right now. Next slide. Chardonnay is one of the wines that I got started when I started drinking wines. It was a white wine, and it was Chardonnay, something simple. White wines you usually drink with salad, seafood, and things like this. But it comes from an historical winery. This is one of the oldest wineries in California. It started back in the 1800s. So it's one of the oldest ones out there, and we own them. Next slide. So when you're sniffing it, you want to smell for the odor and then the flavor. That's the two things that you're looking for with this type of wine: the odor and then the flavor. So what do you detect when you drink it? You could, whatever you do, just put it in the chat because I'm gonna go right through it. Just put it in the chat and I'll go from there. Next slide. So what you're gonna be tasting, you got a lot of fruit in this one. I should say low fruit, meaning aka mild fruit. That's what you're going to be smelling. You're going to be smelling some apples in there, some pear, bread dough smells. That's what you're going to be smelling right now. Next one. From the oak, you got a mild oak to it. You get a toasty scent you should be smelling right now. Brown butter, vanilla, things like that. That's what type of Chardonnay this one is. Now, they're all different. Your smell is going to be different than somebody else's. You might smell a whole bunch of different wines and a whole bunch of different smells, and somebody else might smell something else. But it's all of that stuff is wrapped up in there, so you'll smell a whole bunch of different things in there. So don't be alarmed if you're saying, no, I don't smell that, but I smell this. Don't be alarmed because it's probably in there as well. Next slide.
Oh, wait. Is it my internet or did we lose you?
No, I'm right here.
Okay. Next slide.
Yeah, next slide.
No, I'm having PTSD, y'all. Sorry.
I just stopped talking. That's all. So
okay.
what you're drinking is a 2019. It's from California, Sonoma County. Is a great place to be. 100% Chardonnay. Your rich plum is satisfying. Grilled food, creamy sauce. So creamy sauce or any type of grilled food is great for. You could get it. I put the link onto the chat room. So click on it. So you can buy all 3 bottles at once. So if you buy it, it's $33 individual. Or you could buy the package altogether, and it's like $68 as one. But if you become a Wine Society member, which I definitely encourage you, and like they said, membership have their privileges, is only going to be $26. So that's the thing. So that's the first wine. We'll come back to the next one. You go to the next slide and take over from there, and we'll come back for the next one. Just leave it right there.
Can hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm very nervous now. So, what we can do is at the end, you can email me if you need to, or let me know, and I'll try to put the link in there. for the wines that LJ was just talking about, all three of them that we're going to look at today. So we're going to go back to me, estate planning 101, things you need to know. You got to know these definitions, because if you don't know the definitions, you can't make great decisions, right? All right. So estate planning 101. What is a will? It's a document that says who gets what item and who is in charge of making that happen. It's a court filing. It is public record. It is reviewed and approved by the court. So if you're in Maryland, in most places, but I'm just going to use Maryland because that's where I am right now, and one of the places I'm licensed. So in Maryland, you can literally go on the Register of Wills website for just pick a county. You can put in someone's name. We're just going to pick John Smith. And believe it or not, there are a lot of John Smiths. And you just click on one of the ones that pop up, because these are all the people that passed away. And, they started the probate process in that county. I'm going to say Prince George's County because that's where I am currently. And you just click on it. You click on view documents. You'll see the name of every document that was filed in that case. And literally you can click download. You pay 50 cents a page. You have everything that was filed in that person's estate. It's public record. It was filed with the court. So what's a trust? A trust is a substitute for a will. It does the same thing. It's a document that says who gets what items and who's in charge of making that happen, but it's a private document. Your trust does not get filed with the court. It actually allows the transfer of the assets to be done privately. Your attorney can handle it, and you don't have to go through the court process, not be on the docket, because you don't know the time framing of the court. You're not going to get everything done in 1 week. You're just at the mercy of the court. So what is probate? I know a lot of people hear that term. Probate, it is the court process of distributing decedent's assets. So decedent is the person that passed away. That's what they're called, decedent. It's the court process of distributing decedent's assets and clearing of their debts. So quick myth or fact, do all of your debts die when you die? That should be an easy one. Throw it in the chat. No, they live forever. No, not at all. So, yeah, your debts do not die when you die. That is a common myth that I hear a lot. I can tell you now, if you owe a mortgage on your house and you pass away, you better believe that mortgage company is going to file a claim against your estate because they want their money. Okay? They're not going to go away and be like, oh, that's so sad. They died. I'm just going to go away. It's not how it works. So what is estate planning? People think like, oh, it's this rich thing that you see on TV with all these trust fund kids. So estate planning is actually the process of making sure your family, your team, especially if you own a business, and clients aren't left with a mess if something happens to you. You got to have a plan in place, okay? Something happens to you, your business still has to go. You still have clients to serve. You still have your team that has to get paid. Things still have to keep going. Your family still has to deal with your assets. Your family still has to deal, not on top of grieving, they still have to deal with your stuff. So why not make it easy? You've already made the decisions. All they got to do is follow what's listed, right? So it's not about you. It's about the people you love and, your business, and you just want everything to go smoothly. Don't add on to the grief. All right. So nitty gritty. What 4 documents should your recent graduate have in place? I know everybody's getting their college kid, nephew, niece, whoever, getting ready to go to college. If they are 18, in some states, they are considered an adult and they need to start adulting. Now, because they are an adult, you may not be able to make decisions for them anymore. Now, I understand that's probably the same kid that leaves the refrigerator door open. They leave socks everywhere. Sometimes they may not even, flush the toilet. They're just all over the place, right? There's no way that they're an adult. They're not responsible. Okay, by law, if it's 18, they're an adult. You may not be able to make decisions. So if they go off to college and they have to do something with their account, or they go to the hospital is not going to be like, oh, give me your mom's number. Let me call them. That's not how that works. They're an adult. They're 18. They have to make the decisions. But what happens if they had an accident and they couldn't make a decision? They can't talk. Then what? Right? So you got to have these documents in place, and they can have them with them. You can have it electronically. So if something does happen, you can shoot it off to the hospital and say, hey, my child gave me permission to make decisions for them. My child gave me permission to handle their finances because they're still alive. Their rent needs to be paid wherever they're staying. I'm sure a school bill, tuition, all that stuff. If it's not under your name, you still have to take care of these things for them, right? So one of it, the medical power of attorney, right? You can read it. It literally authorizes who you put, and they're considered your designated agent, to make medical decisions for you when you cannot. You sitting there in a coma, you clearly cannot make a decision for you. Do you want just any interested person, random person, Uncle Fester, who you've met like when you were 4, to make a decision for you because he heard through the grapevine that you was there, and he comes in and be like, oh, this is my niece, this is my nephew, I can make a decision. Do you really want that? Because you have no idea that they're making that decision for you. You want to be able to say who makes that decision. So without this medical power of attorney, a parent would need to petition the court to become the child's legal guardian. They're an adult. That's what you're going to have to do. Please understand, courts, you can be like, this is an emergency, and you file an emergency motion. That's your emergency. That's not the court's emergency. And that's not the only emergency motion they have received. So understand, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, we have to meet today on this motion. Not going to happen. Okay. You're going to be put in the queue. And then during that time, a decision needs to be made. Your kid's sitting in a coma. You don't want that to happen. So the court process can be slow and it can be expensive. In medical emergencies, time is of the essence. Court's time of the essence is not the same as your health condition time is of the essence. That's something you need to take away. So durable financial power of attorney. So that's a different thing. This authorizes your designated agent, the person you put down, to manage your financial and legal matters. So here's an example I wrote. So paying your young adult's tuition, applying for student loans, negotiating or renegotiating a lease, collecting government benefits. Like, these are things that you need to put who's your agent, that they can do these things for you if you are unavailable. Your 18-year-old may be. I don't know about you, but I had college friends, drank a little too much, tried a little too much drugs, and they were passed out and they were in hospital. Doctors weren't like, hey, call their parents. Doctors like, well, what you want us to do? Who's making the decision? We had to call and get their parents there, right? So, you don't want that situation, but it happens. Let's be honest. Most of us have been to college. You might have been, straight-laced, or you might have been one of those that went out there and had some fun. Might have been a little too much fun, But without it, a parent would need to petition the court for this authority. So then you have HIPAA. So some people think medical power of attorney and HIPAA is the same thing. It's absolutely not. So HIPAA, it just authorizes the people you list to get your health information. That's all it does. They are not allowed to make decisions for you. You're just saying these people can know what's going on with me regarding my health. So the designated persons are not authorized to make health decisions for you. They are just authorized to know the health decisions. Parents of 18-year-olds need prior written permission. So, really wouldn't make the 18-year-old upset before you get them to write your name down. They hold grudges. I don't know what's going on in this generation, but they do. And then you have the living will. Some people call it advance directive. So this provides specific guidance about incapacity decisions, particularly at the end of life. So unfortunately, if something happens, it's irreversible, they can't talk, you want them to have, of course you want their wishes made known. What you knew their wishes were when they were growing up and they were 12, 13 may not be what it is when they're 18. So for example, your child, whether or not your child wants to be on life support, maybe they've changed their mind and they've watched Law and Order and they're like, being on life support for like 60 days, that don't look fun. They can say who can visit them in the hospital. You might think they're still best friends with this person, not knowing they dumped that person a long time ago and they're not friends with them anymore. You bringing them there. Do you want that to happen? Or what kind of food they want provided? Maybe your child became a vegan. They didn't like the college food. You may not have known that they're a vegan. However, they can write all this down and you won't even have to make those decisions. You can just look at it and be like, okay, this is what my child wanted, right? You don't want to guess at that point. You don't want them force feeding meat to a child who's now become vegan, right? So, fun stuff. I always like to throw in a celebrity scenario. So, guess. Who are we going to highlight in this Wine and Wills and W-2s? I'll give you a hint. Person still alive. Let's see. Are electronic versions of these documents acceptable or only wet sign original documents? So electronic versions are acceptable as long as they are signed and they meet the requirements for the state. So for example, in Maryland, it only requires, 2 witness signatures. I'm extra. So I usually have 2 witness signatures and a notarization because I don't want anybody coming back trying to contest, saying that, no, that wasn't their signature. No, that wasn't them. I got 2 witnesses and a notary saying that was them. They knew what they was doing. Everything was fine. Let's see. Somebody said Jay-Z. Somebody said Will Smith.
Are they sports, actor, rapper, or singer?
LeBron.
You gotta break it down. What category are they in?
No. That takes the fun out of it. Just guess. R. Kelly. Now, see, I the R. Kelly thing. I have a daughter. That's a little sensitive. I don't know if I could touch that one. I might be worse than him when he did his little interview. So no, we actually gonna highlight Britney Spears. I know you guys wouldn't guess that one, but there's a reason why I picked Britney Spears. Yes, she's a pop artist. Oops, I did it again. But she is like the prime example of what happens when you don't have those documents I just talked about. Okay. They said bipolar for R. Kelly. I love it. So those of you should know who the pop star is, Britney Spears, right? If you are pre-Netflix era, you know her from the 16-year-old pop singer. If you are post-Netflix era, you younger people. There is a Britney versus Spears documentary on Netflix. I am a big documentary person, so I watched it, on top of research for this. It was just crazy. So basically, in a nutshell, when you have with Britney, we all know she was like this pop star that just came onto the scene when she was 16. I think her first hit was like, what? Hit Me Baby One More Time. And, everybody just went crazy for her. She's about 39, 40 years old now. And guess what? She's never truly had full control over her life. So as most people are familiar with her being that pop star, she was living under what we call a conservatorship for 13, 14 years, which is crazy. So some people call it adult guardianship, right? So a conservatorship, as you can see up here, is a court case where a judge appoints a responsible person or organization to care for another adult who can't care for themselves or manage their own finances. So this is a judge who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family. They're making a decision on who's going to be responsible over you, right? And so this court decided, we're going to put her father, Jamie Spears, and other individuals having nearly complete control over her legal, financial, and personal decisions. So this was started in around February 2008, after she suffered mental breakdown, which resulted in being briefly hospitalized. Now, we all know things happen. Everybody reacts to it differently. Unfortunately, when you're in the spotlight, it's kind of tough because your whole life plays out there. So she had a breakdown. She went to the hospital to get some help. All right, so total loss of control. So back in 2008, remember I told you 2008? So the court appointed her father and an attorney, Andrew Wallet, as conservator. So that means they have to agree to make the decisions for her, right? So because she was deemed mentally unfit to care for herself. The arrangement was only meant to be temporary. But in October of that year, the conservatorship was made long-term, and her father has remained in nearly complete control of Brittany's life ever since. So like under this conservatorship, her father had the power to restrict her visitors. He was in charge of arranging and approving her visits with her own children. He had the authority to make her medical decisions. He had the final say in all of her business deals, including when she worked, and the complete authority over all her financial matters. So you would think, well, it's her dad, so it's okay, right? Now, we all know weddings and funerals make people crazy. Money does too, right? So what's abundantly clear is that given a chance, Brittany would have preferred to have some say in not only who should be in charge of making decisions on her behalf during her incapacity, because why? She was unable to make decisions for herself. You know, she was checked into the mental hospital, and like somebody put in here, she cut her hair bald in public and all the other stuff that she was doing. So they deemed her incapacitated, right? But at some point, she would want to make decisions for herself. So, but because Brittany did not create these legal documents I just talked about, indicating who should be making decisions for her, a judge decided for her. And as you'll see, it went off the rails. It was just crazy, right? You wouldn't think that this stuff would happen. So Brittany claims that she had years of abuse and conflict. So there was like this widespread speculation. If you were one of those people that followed Brittany, you knew that she claimed that stuff was abusive. The conservatorship was abusive, but they kept the details of it private. So Brittany recently started coming out about what was going on. So her father and the others involved, attorney too, they have consistently maintained that the arrangement saved Brittany from herself and others looking to exploit her when she was at her lowest point. So they described the conservatorship helped pull Brittany out of debt. It allowed her to earn a fortune estimated to be worth nearly $60 million. Plus, representatives for the conservatorship have noted that Brittany could move to end the conservatorship whenever she wanted. So, but of course, y'all know I wouldn't cover this story unless there was plot twists, right? So here we go, the plot twist. So there were like two shocking developments that revealed how much Brittany has suffered under this conservatorship that her dad is involved in, and how she fought for years to regain control of her life. So it was reported in papers. So according to like one of them was like the New York Times, she expressed how serious this stuff was. And she did this in 2014. Mind you, remember, it started 2008. In 2014, she's still talking about how horrible it is. She's still under it. This woman is out of the hospital at this point. But on multiple occasions, she pushed for her father to be removed. And of course, she was denied. So Brittany, she did an emotional 24-minute speech on Zoom. She pleaded with the judge to end the conservatorship under which she claimed she had endured years of abuse and exploitation, including they made her take powerful mood stabilizers, which made her feel drunk. She was compelled to work while seriously ill and being forced to remain on birth control so she can't have any more children. So, of course, in response, Brittany's father's like, nah, I'm not doing any wrongdoing. He denies it, and he insists that he is acting in his daughter's best interest. So, like, his lawyers even filed a petition requesting the court to investigate her allegations of abuse. And if they prove to be proven true, then corrective actions must be taken. And they're like, if not, the conservatorship shall continue without course. So guess what happened? She went through all of that, right? A week later, the judge denied Brittany's request to remove her father as conservator. It's crazy. So the judge's ruling was only in response to a filing by Brittany's own lawyer made in 2020. We started in 2008. Now we're 2020 to have a wealth management company take over as sole conservator. So she wasn't given what she wanted, which was her rights back to make decisions for herself. Her own lawyer filed and said, no, I'm going to get a wealth management company to be the sole conservator, and they're going to make decisions for you. She was just like, she's deflated at this point. And she had a court-appointed attorney. She couldn't even get the attorney she wanted. She had to get the court-appointed attorneys. Why? Because she had to get permission from her father and the other conservators on who she can get to represent her as an attorney. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. It just boggles the mind on this. So, of course, there's a broken system. Like, her story highlights the real potential for abuse that exists within the conservatorship and guardian system. So she may have initially needed the conservatorship to protect her from her own poor decisions and others looking to take advantage of her in the aftermath of her breakdown in 2008. But think about this. The Grammy winner, she won a Grammy, yes, has worked almost nonstop and earned millions of dollars. In fact, over the past decade, during which she was deemed incapable of making her own decisions, she released 4 albums. She headlined multiple world tours, performed nearly 250 shows in Las Vegas residency, and served as a judge on TV, The X Factor. So I watched very limited reality shows, and The X Factor was one of them. So I watched her as a judge. So I saw all of that. So a person who can do all of that, she's still considered incapable of making her own decisions. So with that said, due to the private nature of her conservatorship and the fact that Britney has never fully disclosed the specifics of her diagnosis, we don't really know the full circumstances of her mental health. So although there's been rumors and speculation that Britney suffered from bipolar disorder, it's never been substantiated, and her medical records are sealed. So what's more, although it was reported in 2019 that she checked herself into a mental health facility and was prescribed lithium, an older medication that's used to treat bipolar disorder, there are court records obtained, of course, New York Times, paparazzi, they're going to get this stuff. That wasn't entirely true. So in 2019, Britney testified that she was forced into the facility against her will. During her most recent testimony, she told the judge that she was forced to take the lithium against her wishes as well. So, of course, Britney petitioned the court to terminate the conservatorship. And for her to do that, she would need to prove to the court that she currently possessed the capability to handle her own life, health, and financial choices. So in order to do this, Britney, she most likely has to undergo another mental health evaluation, which would likely involve a court hearing and testimony from mental health professionals. Yeah, see, this woman is really fighting for her right after all these years. I mean, like, this is more than 10 years. We're going on like 13, 14 years. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So when you're planning for incapacity, where do you start? So when planning for your potential incapacity, the first thing you need to ask yourself, if I'm ever incapacitated and unable to care for myself, who would I want to make decisions on my behalf? So specifically, you'll be selecting the person or persons you want to make your health, care, financial, legal decisions for you until either you recover or you pass away. So the most important thing to remember is that you must choose someone. So like we've seen in Britney, if you don't legally name someone to make these decisions during your incapacity, the court will choose someone for you. And this is where things can get extremely difficult for you and your loved ones. I mean, look at Britney. You would think it's her father, but really, you having your father, a lawyer, and a wealth business company decide when you can have more kids, when you can see them, and who can visit you. I mean, that's just crazy. It really, really is. So then you need a comprehensive incapacity plan. So these are the documents I talked about earlier. These will help you get that comprehensive incapacity plan, because don't forget, You are still alive. You're not dead. So you need these documents to determine who you want to make these decisions if you can. She's not in a coma. She can talk, but she was considered incapacitated because she had a little mental breakdown. You know, it happens. But look what she went through all these years trying to fight. I mean, they even told who she can have as a lawyer. Come on now. Of course, they're not going to let her get a high power lawyer. They're going to make her get somebody that they know they can beat. That's crazy. But people do take advantage, and it be the ones closest to you, you know, unfortunately. But yeah, so you would need those 4 documents: the durable financial power of attorney that I spoke about, the revocable living trust, the medical power of attorney, and the living will. Let me see. Was she still performing and making money? Yes, she was. She sure was. Even when she was sick, they still had her doing it. So, of course, timing is everything. Why is it timing? Because your incapacity planning must be created well before you become incapacitated. You must be able to clearly express your wishes and consent in order for these planning documents to be valid. So even slight levels of mental illness or dementia could get them thrown out of court. So yes, timing is everything. So while you're still good, you need to get this stuff done. And it's a great start to get your newly adult child started with this, right? Because they're adulting, as my daughter tells me all the time. It's adulting. So we're going to let Brittany be a lesson. So what we're going to do is, it would just be bad for me to tell you all this information and not give you a way to start yours, right? So what you're going to do is, you can take a snapshot of this. That's fine. I'm okay if you take a picture. You're going to use this code, and I'm going to put in the chat, you know, my calendar, and you're going to put that code in. So what you do with this code is you actually get a one-on-one session with me to go over incapacity planning for you and your young adult. But of course, there's strings attached. Here go my plot twist, right? There's homework. If you complete the homework before you schedule your session, it's free. And you use the code, it's free. You don't complete the homework before the session, then yes, you do have to pay the $750. So I'm giving you a chance to start your incapacity planning. So in like 13 years, my story won't be you. So I'm going to put that in. And while I do that, it's time for bottle number 2. Let me finish, you know, the Chardonnay. You know, we don't want to waste what's here. All right, come on, LJ, let's go.
You know, listening to all of that, and you know, and with wine in your system, you just it's emotional now. I got all this emotional stuff going through me. My eyes is watering up. I'm sitting here like, whoo, that hurts. Because you know, you looking at her family and thinking, could I do that to my daughter, or be in that mode? It's like, whoo, this is emotional. So if you could throw up to the slide where we left off, or we left off at the Raymond slide. Perfect. Raymond, we're going to take you to the Napa Valley, Raymond Coast. No, go back. Well, you can stay right there. The North Coast Blend. If you've never been to California, been to any wineries out in California, you definitely are missing something in your life. They got some great ones. So as you can see on this map, where a couple of places you want to go, start in San Francisco and work your way up or down. Next slide. The wine that we're going to cover is our Raymond. And what we're going to do, we talked about the 5 S's. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to focus on the touching, the touching part of your tongue. Because when you sip it, we were focused on the smell of it. Now we're going to talk what it's going to feel like on your tongue and on your palate, and coating it. So next slide. And this is a wonderful wine. If you need to, this is a great one. So the texture.
I'm sorry, LJ. Is it okay if I use the same glass, or I need to have a different glass?
If you're going to a white to red, go get another glass.
Okay. So if I don't have another glass, can I just take some tissue, wipe it out?
Yeah. Just make sure you get out the residue of the white. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just make sure you wipe it down because
I'm sorry, I was unprepared.
oh no, it's all good. So what we're doing, we're the texture of the wine and when it's on your tongue. This one is why do we call this full body? Because it's a high alcohol content, that's 14.5% alcohol, and it's very rich. So that's why this is in that full body. Now, a lot of wines are in that full body mode. Um, and when you think of full body, like I said, think of a milkshake, a thick milkshake. That's when they say, when you get it, is it a full body? So when you're at a restaurant and they're talking, you're trying to compare wines and trying to put something to match them, tell them you want a full body red. They're gonna match that wine. It's gonna be a high alcohol content and rich in texture, and it's gonna match up with that food, whatever you get. Next slide. What also with this Cabernet, it's a velvety type of what you're going to be tasting as well. So it's real fresh on your palate. This is a 2019, so it's aging pretty well. Where we're at 2022, this is good. Think of full body texture wines as the longer you hold it. Think about it as when you have a banana. When you first buy that banana and it's not really ripe yet, but it's still fresh. And when you try to open it, it's still kind of hard to open. And then you let it sit for a while, and then it gets easier to open and gets easier, and then it starts to turn rotten. And then that's how you want to sometimes think of wine. But you can still drink it because it's just going to have a different texture to it. It's going to have more of a smooth texture to it. When you get something that's 2022, it's going to have that right texture. So when you drink it, you might be like, "Ooh, it's strong," because it just got open. The bottle just got open. But if you let it sit for a year, 2 years, 3 years, then it's going to smoothen itself out. So that's why when they talk about the texture of the wine, that's what they're talking about right there. And for this one, this is a 2019. It's a fabulous red wine. I really like this one. Personally, I like the ones that's in our Raymond collection. This is a good, nice, medium, high texture wine. Next slide.
I can't
So,
tell
like I
it's
said,
medium. So
say it
I'm
again.
getting better. I can tell this is medium.
Now, if you taste the same one that's 2022, you'll be like, ooh, you'll feel a little punch. It'll have more of a punch to it. It's just like that banana. When you eat that banana, when you first bring it home, and when you bite down onto it, it's a lot of punch. So you sometimes let that banana sit for 2 or 3 days, let it get a little bit softer. It's a nice, easier flow. That's what's happening with that 2019. It's an easier flow. Now, if you hold it another year or two, it's going to be real smooth, and it won't have as much potent. I should say it'll be calmed down a lot even more. So that's what you're drinking right now. This is a lot of it is a Merlot Cabernet, a Cabernet, a Merlot. That's what they have in their grapes. It's concentrated, it's ripe. This is great for red meat. So any red meat eaters out there, anybody likes to have a great burger? I cooked 2 earlier for lunch today. But if you have a great burger, use red wine. If you're cooking with meat, add the red wine to your meats, because what's happening, you want the flavor of the red wine. So the it's going to get burnt. The alcohol is going to get burnt out, and what's left is just the flavor of the wine. So if you ever want to cook with wine, use some good red wine and use it in your meat, and don't be shy to pour it in there, because all it is going to do, the alcohol is going to get burnt out of it, and your food is going to taste even better when you're trying it, because you have more seasoning in it from just that one bottle of wine. This bottle is $29 if you buy it just retail. $23 if you are a wine club member. And a wine club, if I didn't explain it before, it's a quarterly club. You could get three, 6, or 12 bottles every quarter that will be shipped directly to your doorstep. anything that you buy after that for the year, and you, as long as you're with the club, you will get a nice 10 to 20% savings on it. So it's always great to be a part of the wine club. As like they said, membership have its privileges. And if you do go to California, you could get complimentary wine tasting at some of our selected wineries out there. So it's always good if you're traveling California, you want to take a friend, your husband, or your wife, and go to, all you got to do is make that reservation, tell them you're part of the wine club. They'll take care of you from there. So that's the red wine. I'll turn it back over to Michelle, and then I'll come back and talk about the last one and go from there.
All right, good job, LJ. I'm getting there. I'm getting there, sir. I'm getting there.
All right, LJ, you make me feel behind, LJ. You done had 2 burgers and already got started on the wine.
I sit here in my office and I cook and drink wine, and well, I test wine. I test wine. You know,
wine testing. That's right.
For the people.
I love it. So Shaniqua, you are up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michelle. This is I love having these conversations, because obviously I love talking about anything that has to do with planning and strategizing. So I appreciate being a part of this conversation. And then for your celebrity story, to use Britney Spears, the daughter of the person that was committing those atrocities against her, as we talk about what parents should know regarding their recent graduates, honestly, is interesting. And I know everybody that'll hear this is not going to fall into the same category as Brittany's father, because obviously we all want to do right by our children, and we want to lead by example and do the right things by them. So that being said,
we hope.
Yeah, I think so. And then part of what you said was a tragedy even for them, I think money can cloud that decision, because I think we had a conversation on the last call about whether or not her father and everybody else that was a part of that was getting paid, and they were. And so unfortunately that can sometimes blurry the lines a little bit.
And a judge doesn't know you. Like, they automatically assume your parent is going to do the
parents
best
are acting in your best interest.
Right.
Absolutely.
Judge doesn't know you or anybody else. So
absolutely. So with that being said, I guess my part I want to jump in is, what do we do with these kids of ours? And I love the term that you use, adulting, because absolutely their age makes them think that they are definitely adults. I don't even know that they add the ing, all of them, to the end of that, because to them, the age of 18 makes them an adult. And so it makes this conversation that we're about to have as it relates to taxes even that much more important, because it's a conversation that we should understand what we can do with our adulting children, so that we can better inform them of what they can and need to do. And this slide is mostly going to be about, or my presentation is mostly about our recent graduates as they're going off to college. But honestly, I'll use some insight as well, because everybody doesn't go down that path of college. Mm-hmm. And so when necessary, I'll make some, distinctions of when this is necessary or something that can be done for your students entering college or just your recent graduates in general. So next slide. All right, so the question that I wanted to start with is whether or not it's okay for you to claim your college age student. I mean, I think for the most part, many people know that you can. And so what we'll cover and go through is what, in a nutshell, what allows you to still be able to, claim your college age student. And so here's where I'll make the distinction. So you have an 18-year-old that's graduated high school. Can you still claim them on a tax return? And the answer honestly depends, like so much of what the IRS does. So it depends. If they go to college, you absolutely can claim your student or your child up to the age of 24, as long as they're in school. Your recent grad cannot be claimed, or I shouldn't say couldn't be claimed, for certain credits. They can't be claimed to get most of the credits that we would be looking for. Recent tax law changes have allowed you to still claim your children, no matter what the age is. You just can only claim them as a dependent, and the most you can get is $500 for them, as long as they're not in school. But the benefit for them being in school is you are able to carry them all the way through the age of 24. And so the requirements are these basic guidelines below. One of is age, as long as they're 24 years older or younger, you can. The other caveat is that you must have provided more than 50% of their financial support. So that includes food, shelter, clothing, any of their care, as long as it's 50% or more that you provided for them. The third requirement is residency. So as long as your student has lived with you for more than half of the year, and it even includes them if they lived on campus or if you're taking care of them while they're at school, as long as you provide and can show proof that you've taken care of them, the residency requirement will be met. And then the last requirement is relationship. So your student must be, or your child must be related to you in either of these son, daughter, stepchild, foster child, brother, sister, stepbrother. All of these are categories in which they can fit and qualify under the relationship for you to be able to claim them as a dependent. Next slide. All right. So now, what is the reason you would want to claim your college age student? And without question, I think everybody would answer, obviously, for all the tax benefits we get for keeping your child on your tax return as long as you can. To that point, we feed them, we clothe them, we're taking care of them, whether they consider that taking care of them or not, we do that. And so the ability to claim a dependent generally makes taxpayers eligible for more credits and deductions. And so if anybody has young adults that have slowly gotten into this threshold over the age of 16, you know that you lost very large credits once your child got over the age of 16. And so with this credit allows you to do, if your dependent decides to go off to college, is you are able to recapture some of the credits that we've missed for that period in which they turned 17 years old and older. And so the benefit for having them on there, and there are many, not just the credit, but there's many, as you'll see as we get into the slide, why you would want to keep them on the tax return while they're in school. All right, and so I won't go into all of the benefits, but one of the main benefits is this credit right here, this American Opportunity Tax Credit. So this credit is a credit given to any student that's in their first 4 years of school. It makes that student eligible to receive, or I shouldn't say student, it makes you as the taxpayer eligible for up to $2,500 per eligible student. In order for them to be considered eligible, it must be their first 4 years of higher education. Obviously, they could not have claimed it for more than 4 years. They must be in pursuit of a degree. They must be enrolled at least half time in order to be eligible for this credit. And then it must not have been convicted of any felony by the end of the year. That one I put in here because it is something that's relevant right now. I will tell you that there is a lot of legislation surrounding this, which I'm sure Michelle can attest to. This is and I won't go down this rabbit hole either, but a way of keeping some of our babies from receiving some of the eligible things, even for financial aid purposes. And right now there's a lot of legislation on the table to kind of help take this away so that our babies don't have to go through this. And that we remain eligible to receive credits if they are in school as well. All right, so I'll gloss over the rest of the benefits, but we'll dive into what happens if your student is working. So we use the term adulting, which, a lot of our students are getting jobs, whether it's summer jobs, and, many of them would possibly work while they're in school. And so we want to talk about what that looks like for your students being in school for a lot of different reasons. The minute you're a recent graduate, and sometimes it starts in high school, the minute they get that first W-2, they're grown in their brain. And because they think they're grown with their W-2, society has led them to believe that they go run off the minute they get their W-2 and file their tax return. And don't let them be in school, because just like credit card companies, our babies are being targeted even by tax preparation companies. And they're targeting them and they're telling them you don't even have to have had a job. If you file your taxes, you are at least at a minimum will qualify for the $1,000 tax credit. And so that's all most of them need to hear. And so this conversation that we're having is important because it's a conversation you'd want to have with your babies, to let them know this is what's going to happen when you get your W-2. So we'll talk through what it looks like and what will happen when they call you and say, hey, I need to file my tax return because I also had employment throughout the year. All right. So the question becomes, do they have to file a tax return if they, earned income? And I know that was one of the fact versus myths. And so most of you guys got it right. Absolutely, there is no filing requirement if they are under the threshold. But that is not to say they don't want to still file a tax return. And there are certain circumstances that even if they've had $10,000, $12,000, if you guys have it properly planned with them when they started to work, and what I mean by that is going over their W-4s, but primarily if you set out and know exactly how much they are anticipated to make, if you already know that their income is going to be under the threshold, I strongly advise you to have them to not have any federal withholdings or state withholdings possibly come out of their payroll. The reason for that is because, yes, they would file a tax return to get that money back, but it's the equivalent of letting them pay anyone, but especially the IRS, money throughout the year, and them holding their money for a whole year interest-free. Interest-free loan is what it is, and then giving them back to them at the end of the year once they claimed it on their tax return. So if they had under the threshold and did not have any federal withholdings, then there is no requirement to file. If they did have money taken out of their pay, then you would want them to file a tax return so that they could recoup what amount of money they may have had come out of the tax return. But I think with proper planning with the W-4, you can prevent overpayment and underpayment. So a part of the strategy is definitely having that conversation up front, so you know kind of how to advise them on what needs to come out. But let's say that they want to file, they've had money come out and they're like, I need to file to get this money back. And so they absolutely can file a tax return, and then you would check with your tax professional. But in this day and age, if you're filing your taxes on your own, or even if they tell you that they're going to file on their own as well, they just have to remember, in order for you to claim them, because only one person can claim a person's exemption. So it's either they're going to claim their own exemption, which makes them file their own independent tax return, or you as the parent will claim their exemption for them, which is what we're discussing today, which means that even if they file a tax return, they need to check a box on the return that states that they are a dependent of someone else's. And by checking that box, that allows them to file their tax return, get whatever they're entitled to get back from it, but it allows you, the parent, to still be able to claim the exemption and keep them on your tax return. If they do not check the box, then effectively, in order for you to do it, they would have to amend their tax return in order for you to be able to claim the exemption for them. And so the takeaway with this one is just make sure you're communicating with your dependent before the tax season even begins. If you know that they've worked, hopefully you do know that they've had a job, you guys can have a conversation about, what you think their income was. I would even urge you, if they were still working, like at the end of December, you ask them for their last pay stub, and that way it's not a guesstimate. You can look at that, see what their total in year to date income was, if they had anything withheld, and you can pretty much answer from that last pay stub if they have a filing requirement and if it even makes sense to do so. From here as well, there caveat also to the income requirement, I do want to state this, is because now gig workers is a thing. So Uber, Ubering, Instacarting, and everything that we think of is just gig work. Now, with recent tax law changes also, will require any of these industries to give a 1099 form to them. And so by sheer nature of what that form is not the W-2, which states that they are an employee, which allows them to be under the $12,950 threshold. The 1099 actually has a requirement if it's more than $600 that is given to them, and that $12,000 is no longer the threshold because it's considered self-employed income. So it's a different tier of income. And so the requirement to file is not just based off of the gross, it's based off of their net income. And so the net income will be what their gross income was minus whatever expenses. But it absolutely is something to take note of. And I think it's important to state, because I don't want anybody to have, all this income on a 1099 and think that the threshold is still the $12,000, because the sheer nature of the 1099 makes them be considered self-employed. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, Michelle, next slide.
I don't know. Do I want to go on? I mean, that
Okay, well, what you got? Questions on that?
I'm having flashbacks when I, had my first check, and I was like, "Who is FICA? What and why did they take my money?"
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that's a great point. And so even when you ask who is FICA, that FICA is the other people that you're going to pay, and it has nothing to do with whether or not you got to file. That's going to come out the return. You don't even have the right to play around with that or not have that withheld. So we're going to look at only what comes out for that federal withholdings to make the decision about whether or not it makes sense to file it. All right. So now this part kind of goes into the FAFSA and taxes. And this is what I found in our office that is the most questioned part of the tax and our young people going off to school. And it's whether or not the taxes and FAFSA, what correlation do they have with each other? And most people typically think, oh, FAFSA has nothing to do with my taxes. Yet it has everything to do with taxes. And it makes a big difference between, how you file as a parent, how the student files as well. But we'll cover kind of from FAFSA standpoint, who's considered an independent student versus who's considered a dependent student. And based on that definition, how each person needs to file. So per FAFSA, and I think on the next slide, we'll go in through the actual entire slide. FAFSA has a definition for who's considered independent and a definition for who's considered a dependent student. And so per FAFSA, anybody that doesn't fall into the category that's considered independent student is considered a dependent student. So you have to be able to answer, if you answer yes to any of the following under the independent, then you're automatically not considered a dependent, and vice versa. If you can't answer yes to any of the independent questions, you are automatically by default considered a dependent. So some of the things are the age of 24 or younger, which this is based off of this current calendar year, 2022 to 23 award year, which is why the 1999 year of birth is there. If you are considered a graduate or professional student, obviously that means you're already done with your first undergraduate for 4 years of undergraduate. If you are a veteran, if you are a member of armed forces, if you are considered an orphan or a ward of the court, then that makes you automatically an independent student. Someone with a legal dependent, so any young person that may possibly have a child of their own may also be considered an independent student. And then finally, the unhoused community, which is a large community of young people as well. Anyone that's considered homeless or at risk of becoming homeless could also qualify to be an independent student. If you aren't able to answer yes to any of those, you are automatically considered a dependent student. And I want to make note also that the definition, while it sounds very similar, you can be considered an independent student for purposes of FAFSA and not be considered that for tax purposes. So the two aren't correlated in that way. But what I know is if you are a student that could technically qualify as a dependent, this is recently new in the last 5 years. It used to be that you had to be on your parents' tax return. There was no if, and buts about it. But recent tax law changes here again actually makes the distinction between dependent student, independent student, and as it relates to tax purposes. And so while it might be harder to do your FAFSA application, you actually, technically speaking, don't have to be or have your student on your tax return. And that's huge. I think it's happened because some students have actually, or some kids have actually made a substantial amount of money. I actually have a client, his son is a Bitcoin miner, and jokingly he came into the office with his father and sat down next to me, and it was his first year filing a tax return, and I did his father's tax return first, and then turned to his son as I started his, and he gave me his W-2 because he worked at Publix for a little bit. W-2 had maybe $1,500 on it, and so I asked, just as a way of proceduralizing the experience for his son, do you have any other income? And he's like, yeah, well, I don't know if you consider this income, but I mined some Bitcoin and I made some money. And I was like, oh, okay, well, how much money? He made $65,000 from mining Bitcoin. So after I picked my job off the table And before I asked him to show me how he did it, it was a very eye-opening thing, and I think this is the reason why the IRS kind of made a lot more clarity on this number. So obviously, his father had already had him on the tax return, but it would have put him, the child, in so much of a the benefit that his father would have received from him being on the tax return was less than the amount of money this young man would have actually owed on the tax return. So a part of what we do here in our office is tax strategy, not just preparation. And so talking it back through again, we had to go back and revisit what it looked like to remove the son from the tax return and him filing his own return, because obviously it just made more sense for him to get all of his own exemptions and credits, because he would have owed a boatload of money based on, the amount of money that he did make that year. So I just want to say that, the two things don't have to all be the same, even though it makes life a lot easier when it comes to financial aid to have your student on your tax return. But I will say that this is not a one size fit all for everybody. Just like with taxes, everything is based on your own personal scenario.
I don't know. I'm thinking I might have to get him on here and he be my next Wine and Wills. I don't know what W we gonna put for Bitcoin mining.
let's call the W called windfall, because he did that was last year and this year again. So and I think just as young people in that space anyway, which is why it's important to even know, gig work, because so much happens now. The money that they're monetizing from stuff like being on YouTube, and the requirement now that all of these different platforms now are required to follow to report income. It used to be you could get this income and it would technically be under the table income. And yeah, the IRS said you had to report all income, but if they didn't know about it, then, no harm, no foul. And now this is their attempt to say we would need to know about all income from all sources. So it's going to change the game for sure. And we'll see it a lot more this year, because that requirement is something that just happened for this upcoming tax year.
IRS going to get their money. I tell you that. But I do like that Wine Wills and Windfall. You put it around. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work.
Absolutely. All right. So, okay. Well, I guess my slides were a lot shorter. So, yes, that is in a nutshell. I'll put my information also in the chat. If anyone has any questions about anything that we covered, please feel free to reach out.
I love it. There's your thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
So at this point, we will have a Q&A. So don't think we're not. You can put stuff in the chat if you want to. So we're down to the last bottle. So let's come on, LJ. You up. I already wiped out. Wait, let me wipe out my glass. Go ahead.
This is very, very educational of things that I'm learning on my end between the two ladies. So I definitely appreciate it. I appreciate you putting me on to this and going down. Can we slide to the next one? Because this bottle is usually when I do these, this one is the number one bottle to do. Well, not the number one, the first bottle to drink, because it's very
okay. Wait a minute. So let me. I will say please. This was all on me. So again, LJ knows, and I mean, he put me out there. I didn't know the psychology behind it. I'm a sweet wine person. Neither one of these three bottles is sweet wine. However, normally rosé or sparkling type thing is usually the one I like the most out of the three. So I figured we would end on that because of my taste buds. LJ disagrees. He thinks it should be a different reorder. However, I pulled rank on this one. But as I get better, with the wine,
you'll see.
I'll trust him.
When you taste this one, you'll see exactly what I mean to go in that certain order, because you're going from light to heavy. So what we did, we went to medium to heavy. Now we're going backwards.
Don't put me out there like that.
So
don't put me out like that.
As you see, we gotta go next time. We gotta go from the bottom of the hill to the top.
I'll try it your way next time. I can't guarantee, because again, I'm still learning. I'm a rookie. I'll admit it. I know mistake planning. Okay.
We all was. You know what? Being a rookie is a great thing in wine, and you got to understand like this. Most people, and I used to do it myself, when we go to the store and look for wine, this is how everyone does it. And this is not really the best way of doing it. We'll go into the wine aisle. We'll first look for our price point. And tell me if I'm right. Put it in the chat and let me know. We'll go to our price point first. Once we get that price point of wine, then we look for that label. Okay, which label kind of speaks to me? And then once you look around, so that's what takes so long, because we're looking at the label to try to say which one speaks to me. Boom, it speaks to you. You got your wine. Oh, you're so excited. You take it home, you open it up, you drink it. And what happens when you do that, what usually happens? Damn, that wine doesn't taste that good. 9 times out of 10, that usually happens. So it's my job to say, you know what? Let me stop you doing that, because I used to do it too, because I didn't know any better. But so if I can educate individuals for stopping that, that's what I'm going to do. So now when you pick wine, you got to know exactly what you're looking for. You're not going to worry about the price and the label. You're going to look for which Chardonnay I'm going to look for, what Cabernet I'm going to look for, what region do I want to look at wine. These are all the things that you're going to look for in wine. So this Wattle Creek right here is a rosé. Now, rosé are good for the afternoon. Don't really try to drink rosé at night. Really, it's a good afternoon wine. It cools you. You put it in the refrigerator. Your whites and your rosés, your sparkling wine, you put those in the refrigerator, get it nice and cool. It's 90 degrees. You don't want to drink a red wine, because all you're going to do is sweat. Drink a white wine or drink a rosé. This rosé right here from my Wattle Creek, it was a family out in Australia. You could go to the next slide. It's a family out in Australia. They started it, moved to California, because where's the best place to grow wines? California. So they moved to the Sonoma Alexandria village, and that's where they started really growing their rosés. And it's part of our custom labels program. So as you can see, I don't know if you can really see it, but I got a logo on mine. I got my information on there. So if you want to do custom labels for your clients, friends, families, weddings, we could put something, your own personal logo, or some images that you want to put on these wine bottles. So that a rosé, you could do that as well. Next slide. Now with this one, what we're gonna do, we're gonna focus on, next slide. We're gonna focus on the what was it? The touch, the sipping aspect of it, and the first contact when it hits your tongue. That's what we're gonna focus on this one. Also, I want to throw something out there. This wine and cork wines, there's no difference between the two. This is a twist cap and one's a cork. No difference between the two. Sometimes people always, well, what's the difference between a cork and a cap? Nothing. It's just they just decided to use the cork and it corks up, and they use a cap, takes it right off. But there's really no difference. There's nothing benefited or for either one. So I'm gonna throw that out there as well, because you probably noticed the cork on the slide. So we're gonna taste it right there. Next slide. All of this is about your tongue. Now, when people say dry wine, you got to understand what dry wine is. Dry wine is the residue of sugar. Does it has a sugar residue left over in it? That's what they're talking about. So right now, when you taste this one, you're gonna get a low or dry taste to it. This is more of a fruity flavor you should be tasting. So the sugar is not there. Think of an apple. When you eat an apple, there's sugar in the apple, but you really don't taste it. So you just knock the apple out, and if you eat apples, but you just take the apple, knock it out. There's sugar in it, but you really, or the fruity types of sugar in it, not the artificial sugar that we put into like our tea or Kool-Aid. Next slide.
That was a great analogy, because that's true.
Yeah. So that's what you get. This is a medium. So fresh apples. That's what you're gonna be drinking right now. But like I said, this is great to do outside in the summertime, in the afternoon. You get that I usually do, if I open this up, it's usually probably about 3 o'clock. because I know it's not going to do anything for me. So I can still focus on, I can still make phone calls. I can still email without worrying about, ooh, that's going to make me tired. I can do this at 3 o'clock and you'll be fine. You could drink rosé any time of the day. Now, the difference between drinking rosé, white wines, or even red wines in America compared to Italy, France, countries overseas, they drink wine overseas like we drink Coke over here or some type of soda.
That's true.
So
That's true.
the mindset over there is, kids are drinking wine over there because they educate the kids at a young age of how to drink wine. But over here in America, it's frowned upon if you're drinking wine at lunch. And it's like, no, it shouldn't be frowned upon. Instead of getting, when you go to a restaurant overseas, they don't ask you if you have water. They ask you, well, what type of wine do you want to start? They don't come and give you water to start. They give you, hey, what wine you starting yourself off with? Well, give me X, Y, and Z. So the mindset here just has to change about wine. We know there's wine lovers, but the folks who never drunk wine or had wine before, that's what I'm want to educate and change. Because think about when you go down that wine aisle, how many bottles are there? There's rows and rows of bottles. So are you telling me out of all of these rows of bottle, we can't find two that you're not gonna like? That to me, I think that's because it's just so many. So this is the experience. Next slide. So if you're looking at this rosé, this Wattle Creek rosé, it's from California, 2020, 60% of Grenache plus a Barbaret. There's two different types of grapes out there. It's a flirty, fresh, fruity. It's a fruit type of drink. Most of the rosés are in that fruit type of drinks, not the sugar type of drinks. It's great for a fruit salad, a spicy sauce you can have it with. This rosé is only $20. If you're with the Wine Society, it's $16. So like I said, you get 20%, 10 to 20% off if you are part of the membership. But these are great way. This is a great way to, if you like white wines, start drinking some rosés as well, because you will enjoy those as well, because it's more of a fruity type of drink. I know a lot of ladies like mimosas out there. You like your mimosa, your sparkling wine and putting orange juice in there. That's the fruity type drink. You don't have to do that with a rosé. It's already in that fruity world. Just have, hey, can I get a rosé? Now, like I said, do I recommend this at night with an evening drink? Maybe not. But if you're doing lunch, and you're at a restaurant somewhere and they do wine, ask for a rosé. No one's gonna look at you crazy. It's like, oh, what is this? It's a fruity drink. That's only thing. That's what a rosé is, and you could go back to work and still be doing what you got to do and be completely alert. So that's why I like rosés. I started putting those in my repertoire. One of the rosés that we have is by John Legend. John Legend has a winery, and we own it. We produces his wine through our Raymond, and he has a lot of rosés in it. What I'll do, I'll put the link to the 3 wines today. You could buy them as the case altogether as 3, or you could buy them individual. But I'll also put John Legend collection in there. He has some nice rosés and some other reds and whites in there that I think you might like as well. We all like John Legend music. His wine is just as silk and smooth, just like his music. And he has a great rosé in there. I think it's like $25 for to purchase, but it's fantastic that he has. So, but with that being said, I want to thank you. I enjoyed this. This was fun. And I'll turn it back over to you, Michelle.
Well, wait a minute. So what I'll do next time is...
Any questions? First of all, wait a minute. Any questions?
We're not there yet. Wait a minute. Wait.
I thought, okay.
Look, you trying to take over the host job. Wait a minute. I still got the mic. Wait a minute. So what I can do is we're going to send out a replay of this, because I know there are people who wanted to be here but couldn't be here. They've already texted me and let me know. So we're going to send out a replay of this. I will also include the link where you can get the 3 wines together. And I'll include the John Legend link that you're talking about, LJ. And what I may end up doing is the next Wine and Wills, the next quarter, probably October. That way I can do my spooky Wine and Wills. Yes, I'm extra, but it will be awesome. We may include that John Legend. So we'll do that. However, all right, so we do have a question. Is there it's a few questions. Is there any correlation? Wait. I'm sorry. Let me go back. I apologize. We out of order. Okay, so the next slide is Q&A anyway, right? So you can ask any one of us a question. So there's a question in the box that says, is there any correlation between the cost of wine and how good it is? Or are you just paying for a name brand?
There's two ways to looking at it. The cost of the wine, it is. If you are an experienced wine drinker, if you're an experienced wine drinker, you know the difference between, I'm not even going to say, I say a $300 bottle to a $10 bottle. You'll know the difference between a $60 bottle than a $2 chuck type of wine. If you're an experienced wine drinker. If you're not experienced wine drinker, you won't tell the difference because you don't know what you're looking for. So you will have no clue. So, but that experienced person who knows the palate, knows what the smell, knows what region it comes from, knows everything about it, they could tell the difference if this is a good wine and if it's worth that $300 compared to that $30. I had one gentleman when I got into this business and I was telling him about a wine club, and he said, this is how I started drinking wine, is through wine clubs because I didn't know what I was doing. So he joined like 3 or 4 of them. But that was almost 25 years ago. Now he doesn't do wine clubs because most of them are blind wine clubs and you don't know what he doesn't know what he's getting. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's going to offer you a wine club and send you 3 bottles and you don't know what they are, that's a waste of money for him. He knows what he likes. And he just paid, when I was talking to him, he just paid $1,500 for 3 bottles. So that's why I said there's 2 ways to looking at it. If you're an experienced drinker, yes, you'll know the difference. If you're a novice, it won't be any difference to you. So I always just say, if you're learning, start small, and then the sweet spot for most is between that $20 to $40. You could get a nice, you'll get a nice good bottle from that $20 to $40 and be perfectly fine within that range. You'll get a nice good one. If you want to go expensive and do 50, 60 and try it out, sure, knock yourself out. But 20 to 40, you'll be fine and you can learn a lot right in that price range.
Okay, that's good to know. The comment was, my friend said he had a $300 bottle, and I told him I had the same bottle divided by 10. I love it. Are there any other questions? So I did see that there was a comment made in the very beginning that did we have any myth versus fact with wine? Since we did do one with the state planning.
Yeah, that would have been good.
So I'm always open to new ideas. I have no problem doing that for the next Wine and Wills. LJ, you cool with that?
I could figure some stuff out.
You'll be fine with the myth versus fact for wines?
Yeah, I could figure stuff out. I'll find some. I could find some questions out there somewhere.
Okay. I love it. I like how you coming. LJ, we're gonna be buddies.
Yeah. No problem.
Any other questions? You can put them in the chat. We're here to answer those questions. We are at the end of our presentation, but we don't have any problem answering questions. Our contact information is here on the screen. Shoot us some questions. Why not? I mean, really, you get to talk to an estate planning attorney, and there's no consultation fee. I mean, come on. Y'all know we charge for that consultation to talk to us. I'm right here. Let's go. What questions? Any questions? Let's go. Talk to us. And if you have a question, I mean, you could throw a comment out there. What did you think about the webinar? Did you like it? Is it something you want us to add, take away? Was it good? Was it bad? You're never going to talk to us again and never register for any of my events again. What we doing? Like, where are we? I'm open to all of that. You see, we're going to incorporate the myth versus fact for wine. So what other ideas we got? I'm okay with it. I don't take any of that stuff personal. This Brooklyn blood type. We don't get offended pretty, easily. We do go 0 to 60.
Yeah, you do.
We go 0 to 60 real quick.
I would agree with that.
But we don't get offended, real easily. So let's see. I like no technical difficulties this time. Oh, so you just gonna hit me where it hurts with the PTSD, Derek? That's how we going? That's how we going? Okay, you got me on that one. But yes, I like that there wasn't the technical difficulties this time as well. Anybody else? Any questions, comments? I'm all for crowd participation. My whole goal is that we're taking topics that people know they want to know about. However, I mean, they are kind of boring and dry if you let it be. But clearly, the way that, at least this is my impression, the way that I talk about estate planning, the way that Shaniqua talks about taxes, eyes don't glaze over. You don't like drink the whole bottle because you're just like, oh my gosh, they lost me in the first sentence. Like, we make it a conversation because you should be having this conversation at the kitchen table. That's where, I don't know about you, but I know my family, it's 7 of us here. I have my husband, I have 3 children. One is 24, one is 13, one is 12, and my in-laws that are here. So we're all at the table, and that's when we get to talk trash and laugh and joke. But one of the conversations is, like, hey, something happened to us. What you gonna do? If you're not sure how to start that conversation, let me know. I have no problem giving you icebreakers. I'm sure Niqua doesn't have any problems giving you icebreakers to talk about money, finances, taxes, what you should do. LJ definitely doesn't have a problem talking about wine.
No,
the kids drinking wine on this end, but
I'm gonna jump in. But there is, I do like to have to hear what you have to say about, because we all probably in the same age generation, and we have parents that we did not talk about sex, money, and religion at the dinner table. Let's just, and even, I'm grown
estate
now.
planning. Don't leave me out. Estate planning and estate planning. Death.
Well, that can fall into money, because if you don't protect your estate,
the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And even now, we grown. Everybody's grown. We all know, everybody's not living forever. Ma, have you talked about your will? Is your will taking care of this? Well, I don't want to get into that. I want to, that's just that generation that doesn't speak on it. So how do you bring these conversations up, or see if they're gonna talk in, jump into it? Because it's not an easy conversation to have when everything is always a hush, 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 hush. Even in my 40s, I'm in my late 40s. I still can't have those type of conversations at the dinner table.
Well, I mean, obviously keeping secrets is like a bad thing. It's cute for made for TV and documentaries, but in real life, keeping secrets is crazy. And I understand certain generations, that's just what they do. They don't want to talk about it. I had someone tell me, well, I don't want to talk about estate planning because it talks about death. And if I talk about death, I'm going to die tomorrow. Honey, if you die tomorrow, it had nothing to do with you talking to me about death or estate planning, because estate planning is about living. It's not just about death. As you can see, Britney Spears is alive. She's alive. She didn't pass away. And we talked about estate planning for her. She didn't have anything in place. So look what happened to her, and she's alive. So it's for both. So one of the things, like, I had a client who talked about, hey, I have a small child. He's about 6. I don't know how to start this conversation. I was like, don't make it a big deal. When you're talking with them and you're at the table, you're all laughing, and it'll be like, hey, you know what? If mommy and daddy went on a trip and we went far away and we couldn't come back, right? We're not coming back. We like where we are. we're staying. We love you, but we couldn't take you with us. They don't let us bring kids. All right. Who would you want to stay with? Your kid just told you who you should put as your short-term guardians and long-term guardian right there. Because that's who they feel comfortable with, right? So that starts the conversation. Then it's like, okay, so what if mommy and daddy went away? You said you want to stay with Auntie Pam. Okay, so if Auntie Pam gave you like $100, what would you do with that $100? You start talking about the finances right there, because the kid may be like, oh my gosh, I play Fortnite. I want to buy skins. I want to do this. I want to do that. Then you're like, okay, that sounds fun. But what if, what happens if you actually put the money somewhere so your friends that you play on Fortnite with, they buy those skins, and every time they buy a skin, you get part of that money. What do you think about that? That's simple conversation. You literally are talking about finances, estate planning, death, all of it. It's people make it too hard.
It is. And LJ, I'll add this as well, because you bring up a great point, and it's talking about other generations that we didn't have this conversation with. And a good thing that I think, and it's one of the things that we talk about here in the office, is we all plan family reunions. And so the conversation doesn't always have to be around the dinner table, especially for that generation. People should start incorporating having this conversation. I've recently had a cousin of mine, very young, just pass away. So we all had to come together and raise money to bury her, right? And so it's like, why do we have to have that conversation at the time of death? And so we all planning a family reunion, and everybody's planning where you're going with activities. Let's have a part of the family reunion that talks about financial, like what happens if we're going to raise money at the time of somebody's death. How about we just raise money to buy about their policy? Let's have these type of conversations before that time happens. And I think it just introduces something. I read this book is by this guy named John Hope Bryant. And one of the most poignant points that he makes in the book is we are doomed by the things that we don't know, that we don't even know we don't know. So it's incumbent upon those of us in our family structures that know, that have a clue, to figure out a way to have that conversation for sure. Because it's inevitable. We're talking about death and taxes. Yep. The two things, as long as we live in here, that are things that are inevitable. We're going to pay taxes. My job is to help minimize that amount, but nonetheless, you're going to pay taxes. And the other part of that is death. And so even with Michelle, your part of just planning is not even just for planning for who takes care of who when somebody dies. The biggest part of your conversation for me, I'm a tax and numbers and monies person. It is wealth preservation. I'm all for protecting wealth, and we can only protect wealth and pass it down when you implement stuff like, you didn't dive deep in this, but doing a trust, like even having a trust set up and avoiding stuff like probate court and some other things allows you to pass down wealth. Even avoiding taxes in some scenarios as well by using instruments like a trust as well. And so it's having the conversation, no matter how you have it, just kind of introduce it to get people comfortable with hearing it. And then just making it something that's extremely important, because it's not, to your point, something that has historically happened, which is why we have an issue passing down wealth, and why we have so many different things.
GoFundMe is not an estate plan.
It's not an estate plan.
It is not.
I can't even get on that one right now.
GoFundMe is not an estate plan for you. It's not. Okay. Crowdsourcing is not an estate plan for you. Because look, this person passed away. Yes, you like, oh man, they need some help. But then the funeral costs come out $8,000-$10,000. It's crickets at that point, because it's like, wait a minute now, I got a kid in college. I got, these kids that play sports. I got a mortgage. I got all this. You gonna take this $50. You should have been ready, but GoFundMe is not an estate plan. There's no guarantee, because even if you decide to be cremated, the cost of it, you might not even raise that much. But I'll tell you what, that funeral home or that morgue, they're not gonna hold the body but so long. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you can sit there with GoFundMe if you want to. They gonna put you in what is it, the Potter's Field that they always talked about, where they bury people who don't have money, or they cremate you and throw you in the ocean. and you become fish
And,
food.
and you know what's so funny? I just started hearing more and more of those. Both that Potter's Field is like a commercial that runs like every 20 minutes. Like Potter's Field, I literally looked it up. Like I never heard that before.
Really?
No, not until this commercial, and it's probably been like a month since I started hearing. It's like on one of the old school channels that I watch, and it's just the Potter's Field. You gotta be on Potter. I'm like, what is that? It's like,
Yeah, man, you'll be in a Potter's Field.
Yeah,
yeah, it is true. Because remember, they got to bury inmates, and a lot of inmates. I mean, they don't really have that much money on their commissary, and a lot of them, the family wrote them off. They got to bury them somewhere. You got to bury the people who low income. They don't have the money. They're either cremated or they're buried somewhere. So it's like, what do you do? The government has a way for you, so you can decide how you want that to be done, or the government will decide for you, because they're not gonna hold that body for forever. They just not. But GoFundMe is not, an estate plan is not at all. I tell that to everyone.
You see that a lot too, and you see that a lot. Life is the estate planning, life insurance. It's none of that.
It's not. So I don't see any other questions. I do see a couple of comments, which is great. Everyone loved the presentation. They loved the information that was given. The latest one I saw was from Tara. Wonderful presentation. I love it. I definitely would like a link for this presentation. Didn't get to hear everything, but loved it. Tara, I'll get that out to you. So I have a weekly newsletter that I send out. So we'll put the replay on there. I add people to the list, and it gives other information too. I know Shaniqua has a weekly, or is it monthly newsletter that you send out? Which one?
Monthly.
Monthly newsletter that she sends out with great tax tips. LJ, do you have a newsletter that you send out?
No, but stay tuned. I have a podcast I'm working on. It's called Come Wine With Me. And the premise is basically, taking entrepreneurs and give me your story on what was your Jesus moment that made you do your own business. And I let individuals tell their story, because I believe in entrepreneurship, and I believe there's an entrepreneur in everyone, but they're just scared to jump into that mode because we are a slave to the 2-week check.
I love it. You better put me as a guest.
Come with me.
You better put me as a guest, LJ. You know you gotta have me as a guest. Don't make me be the one that crash the podcast. I am not above doing that.
No,
I'm gonna do that. It's funny because I have my own that I'm doing as well, which is it's called Under Oath with Michelle Bell.
I love that.
I know. So my husband came up with that name. I thought that was amazing.
Good job, Derek. I love that name.
I also started it like a couple of years ago. Then COVID hit, engineer got sick, all kinds of stuff. So we are going to revamp it. I was asked by, Montgomery County Public Access Station to put it on there. So that way I can bring on other guests, because I was just having attorneys obviously give a consultation without the fee, right? And we would talk and we would have a good time and have fun. So I'm revamping that as well. So yes, stay tuned for Under Oath with Michelle Bell. We're going to have a good time. He's doing my communication. And I think, Shaniqua, there's a thing for you. Yep. She would like to be added to your newsletter as well. So I don't see any questions, any more communication. I think we can wrap this up. We did go a little bit over time, so I'm sorry about that for others, but I hope that you actually learned some things. I hope that you had a wonderful time. I know I did. I had my little wine shirt, my wine glass shirt. That's what helps me relax. I had a tough day today, but, speaking with you guys, educating, doing it in a different format, hopefully, that you liked. I thought it was great. Shaniqua, it was just invaluable, the information that you gave. I really appreciate you taking the time to come here and share your knowledge with everyone. I thought it would be cool because I know we have similar personalities and the energy we bring, but we are boss ladies in what we do, and we know our stuff. So why not give it to people? LJ, I mean, really, every time I always get comments about how good you are on these webinars. You know your stuff, you know your wine, you're very personable. You don't put me out there too much on my learning journey. Kept hitting at the sweet wines. That's what we do, and picking what speaks to us.
Yep. Yep.
Me all day long. I'm gonna let you put me on Front Street for that one. I'm gonna let
Yeah,
you do that.
I am. I'm gonna do that all the time.
Everybody will learn. Look, they're gonna be on a journey with me as well, because I
Yep.
know I'm not the only person that's like this. I'm getting there. It's gonna take a minute, but I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk about your different wines, to educate my followers, my attendees, and do these wine and wills with me, and impart your knowledge on it. It's wonderful. It's a great addition to the presentation, a great breakup in between all the subjects.
Mhm.
And I hope that we've got people to start the conversation about estate planning, about wine, about taxes and benefits and things like that, on how you can talk to your family, business partners, coworkers, anybody you need to talk to, family, about it. It's not taboo, and it shouldn't be taboo, and it should not be gloomy. The eyes should not glaze over. It's not. I mean, look at my personality. Seriously, it's estate planning. Like, I'm really gonna be in rare form the next one. The next one's gonna be in October. We are doing spooky wine and wills. Have no idea what the next W is gonna be, but it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have some fun on that one. I'm not big into Halloween. However, it's the only month where I can literally talk about death and everybody goes, yay. It's October. That's the only month I get to just amazingly shine. So I can't wait for that. Hopefully you guys will join me and we'll have some fun. Yay.
Thank
We
you,
got
Michelle.
great job, everyone. LOL. So I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Replay will go out with the newsletter. Definitely. Hopefully you guys have taken down our contact information, and any questions, reach out to any of us and we'll just go from there. Any last comment you want to make, Shaniqua and LJ?
No, just thank you. This was an amazing, like I said before, it's an amazing topic. I love it. I love your energy. I love LJ, your energy. So this was awesome. I can't wait for the next one.
Look, I'm scared. We might need to start before 3 o'clock. LJ out here with rosés at 3 p.m.
I know.
Make this start at 12. He's scaring me.
It's not a problem. But I do got to give you a different phone number though.
What? Okay.
On my slide, I do got to give you a different phone number.
Well, then email him. Don't use that phone number.
Or put it in the chat, LJ.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, put it in the chat. When I do the replay, they can see the chat as well. And don't forget, feel free to share the replay with any of your friends, family, colleagues, anybody you think will benefit from this. Feel free to share the replay. It does not cost people anything, because again, we're educating the community. This is our way of educating and giving back. So we'll see you on same bat channel, same bat time. October will be a Wine and Wills. I'll do a couple of webinars before then, but I do Wine and Wills quarterly. So you'll see me in October. Again, spooky Wine and Wills. I don't know what the third W is going to be, but it will be amazing. So thank you guys.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye. Have a good evening.